Bum, bum, bum. Gotta go fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, welcome back to another summer of Before and After.
Really sorry we didn't really get to finish last summer's movies. Rena's phone died.
My phone died and all the recordings were on it.
So that's why you never heard our thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy.
And we accidentally broke the flash drive that we magically transferred all the files from my phone onto.
Because I'm an idiot.
So you'll never get to hear our thoughts immediately after watching Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it was a year ago. I imagine people have moved on by now.
Probably.
So anyway, we are back. There was a, if things are right, there was a brief before that we recorded in the car that we didn't really talk about much, and now we're going to talk about the after. This, as we are recording this one is not, unlike most before and afters, this is not immediately after viewing. This is actually after we even did the Nerd and Tie roundtable discussion, which...
I was wearing a different shirt for.
I was too. But we were also, there were a lot of people talking, and we didn't really get to explore a lot of our thoughts. We just wanted to kind of elaborate on Age of Ultron, a movie that I think we still both agree was worth seeing, but pretty solidly mediocre.
Or terrible.
Ooh.
Depending on which side of mediocre versus terrible you go on that one. I have more cons than I have pros.
I know you do. I guess, well, I guess to start this thing off, some things. First I want to elaborate, I guess, a little bit on some of the points we made back on Nerd and Tie. Like,
part of me is sorry for some of the insensitive things that I said on Nerd and Tie.
By part of you, do you mean all of you?
The part of me that doesn't hate Scarlet Witch.
Okay, that's fair. What I want to get to, though, like, starting things off, the first act of the movie, speaking of starting things off, the first act, like, basically, the introduction, the opening fight scene through Ultron's first fight with the Avengers is a mess.
Very big mess.
It is an absolute mess. The opening of this movie, the weird thing about this movie is that a lot of its problematic parts aren't bad things on their own, but when you combine them together with everything else going on in the movie, it's a problem. And this rushed opening sequence is definitely it.
You could have made that entire opening sequence its own movie.
That's the scary part. You could. There's just too much getting thrown at you.
It would have made a great episode on TV.
Yeah,
that's about the CG budget you got in that scene.
That too, yeah. The CG. We both stand by what we said on that podcast, though. The CG in this movie is bad. It does not look professional. The only CG that particularly looked consistently good was
Iron Man.
Iron Man suits and the Quinjet. That was really it, I thought. I thought everything else looked kind of... I think there have even been Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes that have looked a little bit better than some of the scenes that
there have been Smallville episodes with better CG.
Whoa! Ow. Ow,
I've only seen 3 episodes of Smallville.
Ouch. You must have seen some of the later seasons.
No, I watched the first season.
Oh, God. Oh. Ooh, woof. And I really think a lot of the movie suffers of that. This really jumbled first act where they've just got to get everything out, you know. You got... and we were talking a little bit before this. We were both kind of agreeing... I'm glad they're starting to set up Iron Man as kind of a villain character, right? Mm-hmm. Well, not like a straight-up villain, but an anti-hero who's not going to make the right choices. I'm good with that. Are you good with that, Rena?
Yeah.
I don't think he needed Scarlet Witch to push him in that direction.
Absolutely not.
I thought that was completely needless. And I guess, yeah, we should say it now if you didn't know before. We're going to spoil it out of this movie. So just... If you haven't seen it yet, don't watch this.
Why don't we put that at the before? The before.
Yeah, we probably should. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, no, he didn't need Scarlet Witch to push him.
No.
He's already all PTSD'd out and kind of paranoid after the first or excuse me, after the third Iron Man movie, and what?
And speaking from experience here, you don't need someone to get actually in your head to make you more paranoid if you suffer from PTSD. Because your head is doing it to itself.
The fact that he already has this Iron Legion thing set up, that should have been just it right there, is like, he's freaked out, he's worried that his friends are going to get killed, which you see in the dream sequence, so, like, maybe, so, takes Loki's scepter because he thinks this'll make the Iron Legion even better. Maybe they could replace the Avengers entirely.
Oh, you should talk about your theory with, the Ultron protocol. Of what they should have done instead.
Yeah, even the part of the problem, like we were just saying, is that pacing thing in the first act. What if we would have been setting up this Ultron thing a little bit earlier? Hint at it in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which you were talking about before. But even earlier than that, what if in Iron Man 3, instead of Tony being Mr. Cool and being having the remote suits working...
Execute house party!
Yeah, that with the house party protocol, what if instead he called it the Ultron protocol? Like, what if that was the name of the AI running the suits way back, even before any of this got started? I think that would have really been a nice...
Or even if we would have pulled a Gundam seed, and it just having been, like, meaning something.
Yeah, like have it be an acronym. Just have, but don't have Ultron just be this thing that suddenly Tony is like, Ultron. It's this thing that we've totally been talking about, Dr. Banner, and yeah, we have. Now we're going to develop all of the software for it
overnight.
Well, the montage makes it look like it was over several days, but it's like
no time spent on it whatsoever.
And if the audience isn't following,
even if they are geniuses,
especially if the audience isn't like introduced to it properly, which I really don't feel like I was as an audience member, it just seems really rushed. And I'm saying that because I'm doing something very hard. I'm trying to separate the Nick who reads comics and already knows what Ultron is from the audience who might not necessarily know their comics. And who
I know what Ultron is. He's this.
Oh, look, he's that guy. Okay.
And there's this catchphrase that he never says in the movie.
That's the theme of the Avengers movies. You never get to say your catchphrase. It's Avengers. So yeah, it's there, but there are good parts of the opening. There are little good parts.
Oh yeah, motorcycle throwing.
Yeah, Steve Rogers chucking a damn motorcycle was amazing.
I can't even physics. How heavy must he be, and how hard did he hit those brakes in order to be able to chuck a motorcycle that is 3 times as heavy as him?
In the comics, Captain America's main ability, at least back in the 60s, was his knowledge of leverage. Like, that was like his catchphrase. Every other book, he's like, I'll use my leverage to blah, blah, blah. It's great. Also, Cap's costume. Holy crap, that was a great costume. You even get some really funny sequences with the Hydra dudes. Like, I loved Tony Stark. Good talk! And the one guy, no, it wasn't. That was funny.
Totally Bob.
That must have been Bob, Agent of Hydra.
Bob has been, like, all over the place.
He's been everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the...
I wouldn't either.
That was really great.
He didn't get dead, so I wouldn't be surprised.
You know who did get dead in Hydra, though, that I'm really upset about?
Baron von Stricker!
They have been hyping this guy up since Captain America 2, which granted was only a year ago, but that's a year of hyping. And on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they've always been like, oh yeah, Stricker. Yeah. And I think collectively he's had maybe 10 minutes of screen time.
Less.
Yeah, like less than that, and then they killed him in this movie off screen.
He may have had less screen time than Coward and Evangelion.
I wouldn't be surprised. I was thinking about it, though. So Strucker is a character who's known for finding ways of getting young again, because he's supposed to be like World War II age. what do you want to bet me Whitehall's part in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? This crossed my mind earlier today.
Was supposed to be Strucker.
Was supposed to be Strucker, and yeah, and
I
they,
wouldn't be surprised.
and they couldn't get the actors' times to coordinate, so they just
New
added.
guy.
Yeah, they just added in Whitehall, and then all that stuff that was supposed to be Strucker just went to this completely different character, who honestly acted like Strucker most of the time anyway. So,
We can't have Blue Beetle, so let's have Ant-Man. That kind of thing.
I liked, made me really disappointed because I liked Whitehall, the villain from the first half of this season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. way more than I liked what they did with Strucker in this. That was disappointing.
Oh yeah.
As a fan of just
Captain America
and S.H.I.E.L.D. and just their bad guys.
You were so excited for Strucker to do something.
I was, because he's one of the big Hydra baddies.
And the first thing he does is raise the white flag.
Uh-huh. But on the upside, Cap got to kick a shield at his Nazi neck, so that was cool. But
yeah. And then we're introduced to two characters who we learn almost nothing about through the entire movie.
Which is disappointing. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. I'm so mixed about these characters. It's not even
those
funny.
actors can act!
I know!
Also, it's really creepy that husband and wife are now brother and sister.
Yeah, they were the husband and wife from Godzilla. The incredibly boring husband and wife from Godzilla.
Also, Quicksilver, gained another person in muscle.
Yeah, remember that guy's kick-ass. Think about that. I mean... but it's good to know that Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Tyler Johnson can act, because they were awful in Godzilla. They were terrible in Godzilla. And then suddenly they show up in this, and they're like...
One of them's ripped.
Yeah, one of them's ripped, and
the other one's like...
Poor Elizabeth Olsen. She was doing the best she could with what she got, but I didn't feel like they gave her much to work with. She was there.
She was more like Scarlet Raver.
I'm gonna say, since we did do it before and after for this movie, so Quicksilver off, Aaron Tyler Johnson version versus the one from Days of Future Past.
No contest. X-Men Evolution.
Okay.
Okay.
Live action only, though. Smart butt. Smart butt.
No. I definitely like Pietro more than Peter.
Yeah, Aaron Tyler Johnson did a really good job with the character.
And it really, really sucks that the one actually called Pietro doesn't get to be in any more movies.
Yeah, that was a kind of, I think Trey from Nerd and Tie was right. If you didn't watch that, Trey's theory was this was one of those custody things that they did between Fox and Marvel, where it was, well, you guys can have Scarlet Witch, and you can use Quicksilver, but you have to kill him. And we get to keep Quicksilver for the X-Men. So...
Why couldn't Fox have kept Scarlet Witch?
I think the effects they did for Aaron Tyler Johnson's running were way better than what they did in Days of Future Past.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a lot more fun. It was a lot more cool.
They also got pro tips from watching The Flash on the CW.
That's true, he did. But if you're gonna steal from the best, I mean, that's a good show.
Really, basically the same speed effect.
I even was okay with his Nike workout gear superhero costume.
It actually suits the character more.
It's true. He's...
Because nothing says raving D-bag quite like wearing sports outfits.
He was very good at being Dick Silver. That was fun. And I was...
That's my favorite thing about Quicksilver, is that he needs to be a raving D-bag.
His interactions with Hawkeye were really good.
With Papa Hawkeye?
With Papa Hawkeye, yeah. Should we talk about him?
Yeah, but first, the chemistry between Pietro and Clint was so good.
Yeah.
That they should have figured out a workaround on their contract with Fox. I wish they would have been able to figure out a workaround. I mean, they're not even technically the same character. They have different names.
Honestly, I think what they could have done, and what they should have done, is what made Hawkeye's interaction with Quicksilver and even Scarlet Witch work so well is that they set up in this movie that Hawkeye's a dad, and that he's a pretty good dad, and because they're younger heroes, he feels the need to take them under his wing. Now, Hawkeye doesn't have his own movies.
Papa Bird.
He is the Papa Bird. Hawkeye doesn't have his own movies, and we're introduced to Pietro and Wanda in this movie. I feel like we should have focused more on those three characters, because Cap and Iron Man, they're going to be fighting next movie. Thor, he's got his own movie next. As long as I get to see them be cool
in their movies
and get to do a couple cool things.
I'm okay with them kind of cameoing.
Yeah, I'm okay with them taking a... It's like the early seasons of the Justice League cartoon, where it's okay to give Batman and Superman the back seat, because they have their own TV shows. And I would have been much better with, let's let these let these three characters be in the foreground, and then our regular heroes, they'll get their own movies. We'll get back to them. They'll be fine. They'll still be there when in a little bit.
Oh yeah. And like one of my bigger problems with this is you're introduced to Pietro and Wanda, and they have this conversation with Ultron,
where they explain their backstory.
Where Ultron proves that he is one of the nice guys and is not a bad guy. I'm sorry.
This scene is great in the wrong ways, and it's terrible in the legit...
every way that it's supposed to be good.
Because here's the thing, Pietro and Wanda have yet another tragic backstory of how their lives were ruined by Stark weapons. Now I get it, Tony's weapons have ruined a lot of people's lives. We've established this. The problem here being that rather than showing us that, because, movies are a visual medium, like Sean pointed out, instead, we just get to hear Scarlet Witch talk about it. We don't get a flashback. We just hear her talk about it. But, who we get to see? We get to see Ultron listening. And he's a really intent listener. Like, to the credit, the only
just like that, actually.
The only good thing I'll say about the CG on Ultron was the look on his face is, I care. I am really interested in what you have to say right now. It's so inadvertently funny, because they keep cutting back to him, and he's like, tell me more.
We're going to talk about Ultron's design immediately after this. The fact that he has a very expressive face doesn't help this scene at all. If we would have had accurate
comic book
Hank Pym bug face, it would have been a much more serious scene, because you would have seen Ultron just be like,
yeah, like talking to a Cylon Centurion.
What is going on? Why are you telling me this? I can look this up on the internet in 5 seconds.
But instead, yeah, we get bizarre...
whatever that was.
So Ultron's design is something...
Here's Ultron!
It's actually the Laputa robot. By the way, apparently the Laputa robot is in this movie. If someone could tell me in the comments where it is.
Wait, that's not Ultron?
That's not Ultron.
But this isn't Ultron either.
Well, no, that is definitely not the design they went with. Ultron's design is...
They kind of meshed these two together.
Yeah, he's kind of the Age of Ultron design meets the Laputa robot.
I did a terrible sketch of him almost immediately after watching the movie, and
his proportions are really weird.
I just did the proportions, and he looks exactly like the Laputa robot.
His proportions are weird, but the CG is what really breaks it for me. He doesn't look like he has any weight. Like, he doesn't look like he...
The floor doesn't shake. You don't hear any of the tinny sound from the fact that he's got vibranium in his build. You don't hear anything. Unless he's, like, walking an inch above the ground, which...
And he looks like a Transformers Prime character most of the time, which normally is not an insult, but
he's not in Transformers Prime.
But he's not in Transformers Prime. He's interacting with actual real-life people, so it's jarring.
He also has Bumblebee's eyes from the Transformers movie.
Which, his face in general is the other... Like you were saying, it's really expressive, and I understand why
does he have movable lips?
Yeah, like, I can understand why you might want that to make it... to differentiate him, but I would find... Personally, I find an unmoving robot face to be way more jarring and disturbing than...
You could have Ultron Prime glow a different color than Ultron bots.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually more fun if you have all the Ultrons talking at the same time.
Oh my god, how great would that be to have, for him to even demonstrate that, like during that final battle scene, to have, this is just what I wanted, like, just his one voice alone, this is just what I wanted, all of you, and then all of the Ultron bots in unison, versus all of me. Like,
that would have been great!
That, oh, so many things.
I have this issue, that the Ant-Man that we got in the movie is more based on Hank Pym, who hasn't actually been introduced into the universe yet.
The Ultron that we got.
The Ultron. Yeah, that's what we meant. That's what I meant. The Ultron that we got in the movie is more based on Hank Pym, who hasn't been introduced into the live-action cinematic universe yet. Until later this year. But, like, even that Ant-Man costume doesn't have the mandibles.
Yeah, it's weird that Ultron has the mandible thing going on, but he's supposed to be he's robotic. Now I've heard one person who wrote into Nerd and Tie was like, well, maybe Hydra were the ones who designed the Ultron body, because you see like robot parts lighting up in Sokovia at the Hydra base after they blow up the Ultron Mark 1, which maybe that was the case, but again, movie, give me something here.
Ultron is supposed to have issues with his creator, and like,
he's got hardcore robo-daddy issues.
Like, you made me in your image kind of issues. And he doesn't look a thing like Iron Man. And he doesn't even call Tony father at any point.
They kind of hint at it, but that's one of the movie's other recurring problems, is that it has ideas that it starts going with.
It doesn't flesh out with them at all.
And then, yeah, it never follows up with them. It's like, oh, does Ultron have daddy issues with Tony? Maybe, but we're not going to talk about it again. Hey, the Iron Legion, they seem kind of symbolic of America's intervention in countries where they don't want intervention. But we're never going to talk about that again. It happens a lot, and it's infuriating.
Other things. That party sequence in the beginning of the movie was almost entirely unnecessary. You see Sam for a little bit, and he doesn't show up again after that.
He doesn't show up as the Falcon until the end.
The party exists to be an exposition dump.
Of like what the Avengers have been doing in the interim. And
we could have gotten that in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, actually ask people to watch the TV series that's a tie into the cinematic universe.
Or, well, and the more annoying thing, though, was a lot of the stuff we learned. Aside from that Black Widow and Hulk are apparently a thing, most of the stuff that we learned is nothing new. It's like, oh, Thor is still hanging out with Jane. The only news there, Jane has a Nobel Prize. Oh, okay, that's cool. Tony is still rich. Nothing new there. Oh, hi, Falcon. What's up? Oh, I'm still looking for Winter Soldier. Oh, good. Glad you haven't forgotten about that.
And Sam apparently shouldn't tell stories to aliens.
Or, that was Rhodey.
Rhodey. That's it.
Yeah,
Rhodey shouldn't
Rhodey
tell
shouldn't tell
stories. Aliens.
Like, that was kind of funny, but honestly, the only really good part of the party scene
was the hammer sequence, is in the trailer.
Mm-hmm. And the hammer sequence is great. That was a legitimately good scene.
Speaking of, Cap can wield the hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Cap could be Thor if he wanted to, but he chooses not to because he just doesn't want that responsibility.
I loved that the hammer move. I loved Thor's reaction to that Cap can move the hammer. That was great. That was really good. I could have definitely done without Joss Whedon, I love you. I on it, but Tony Stark with the prima nocta joke, not funny, man. That's a rape joke. That's not funny at all. Then I don't know. That's a really awful thing to have probably the most popular Avengers say. Not cool. Not cool at all. Other than that, the hammer scene was awesome. I liked that scene.
The destruction of Jarvis.
That bothered you a lot, I know.
If someone has ever suffered violence against them, or specifically very invasive violence or invasive actions by another, that scene is incredibly upsetting.
And maybe that was the intention, but I don't...
And Jarvis says everything that a victim would say. But he's actually able to vocalize it, which is why it hurts. Victims, while it's happening, generally can't vocalize.
If they can, it's
not being received at all.
Which Ultron doesn't receive, which, yeah. Okay.
So, if by chance you haven't watched the movie and do suffer from assault-related...
it could be an assault trigger.
It can be an assault trigger.
Yeah.
And it's completely jarring. While it was one of the better sequences in the movie, it was completely jarring and treated for what it was, as a terrible, horrible thing. Also, props to Jarvis for saving himself in backup servers.
Good call, Jarvis. Jarvis continues to be a great character, and he became
a hot alien.
A greater character. He says he is no longer Jarvis, but you gotta love the Vision.
Jeffrey Chaucer's finally on screen.
So we have...
I made a Night Tale joke, so...
I like A Knight's Tale. You showed me that movie. I like that movie. So, once again, this movie probably would have been better served by focusing on the characters who didn't get a lot of love in the past. Like, I feel that if we got more time with Hawkeye and the twins, it would have been stronger, and...
If we actually got real storytelling on Widow, it would have been okay.
Good God.
I'm just gonna go...
Black Widow is a really complicated thing in this movie for where there are problems and where there are not problems, and
because a lot of it is up to the person watching it to interpret if it's a problem or not.
As of when we're recording this, it's already quite controversial what her part is in it.
I do feel that the romance was a complete disservice to both herself and the Hulk.
Yeah, I didn't feel that they worked. I understand arguments for it, especially from the perspective of, but it didn't work out in the end, and that's for the better.
And that's terrible.
And that's, well, I was going to say that's
better for everyone.
It's better for everyone, and it's how classic Hulk stories tend to go. Is Hulk tries to get a regular...
Okay.
But, so, I mean, yeah, that's... But if you felt... I feel that that some of the complaints, though, about how Black Widow seemed like she wasn't on her top of her game and maybe waiting too much for Hulk to save her at times.
She was a bit damsel in distress.
She got damsel in distress a little bit. Like, as another one of my friends pointed out,
I can build a radio out of miscellaneous garbage sitting in this room that probably shouldn't be in this dungeon thing, but I can't pick the lock.
Yeah, that's weird.
I am a crazy Russian trained spy lady who has been able to pick the locks on much more complicated things and much more simple things than this. And I can't pick the lock on the dungeon because Scarlett Johansson is pregnant.
Yes. I enjoyed Black Widow's...
Sorry.
It's true, though. I enjoyed Black Widow on the motorcycle. That scene was fun.
Beep beep.
Yeah, that specifically, I laughed.
I actually really didn't like the quickies, so...
I know you didn't like the quips, and that's fair. Because there were probably too many smart-ass one-liners in this. I will say, I still feel that I'm sick to death, and I'm going to leave it at this. We don't have to go back to Black Widow after I say this. But I am sick to death of sterilizing the redhead.
Sterilizing the only girl, actually.
Yeah, sterilizing the only girl character, because here's the thing. This is what it boils down to for me. I think that it's become a common trope to do the one female character gets sterilized, because that is a female tragic backstory to have. But to me, when I hear about that happening, the first thing that goes through my mind, and maybe it's because I'm cynical, it's, oh, you got to do a sexual assault scene without having to have to shoot a rape scene. That's really gross. I want you to know that's really gross. I'm really sick of it happening. It's an overused trope. It's gross, and I don't like it.
And it takes more than two hands to count the number of women who have fallen prey to this trope, just to create tragedy in their background.
And recently, in just sci-fi, it's been a lot of redheaded women, and I don't know what's up with that. Like, even going back
Redheads are impure.
Going back to even Gundam Unicorn, they did it to Marita.
Yep.
They did it to...
But then again, I knew that was going to happen to her, and I still was... Because I actually cared about that character, it actually made me sick to my stomach.
Well, I think the Black Widow thing made a lot of people sick to their stomach. I think it was just in bad taste.
It was poorly done, and it had no place in a family movie.
I agree.
Absolutely no place in a family movie.
And frankly, I think Avengers movies should be something that everyone can go enjoy.
And this is my own personal thing. I don't think family movies should touch on sex. I don't think they should touch on sex. It's okay to have, things that would go over children's heads, but literally naked Ruffalo, macking on Scarlet Witch and
Johansson. Yeah.
I didn't need that. Didn't need to imagine it.
Well, it
never happened.
The thing is, though, other Avengers movies have been more than, Guardians was overt about it. Iron Man 1 was really overt about it.
But the difference here is that you got gross sex jokes.
There were way too many gross sex jokes in this movie, yeah.
And things like that, as a survivor myself, make me sick.
There were points where I felt like Joss Whedon was replaced with Michael Bay.
Were you playing hide the cucumber?
That pissed me off. That line actually pissed me off.
I'm sorry. She wasn't watching 50 Shades of Grey in a movie theater.
That was just that was in bad taste, and I hated that joke.
I don't know who wrote that joke, but all of a sudden, Tony, where the strongest person in his life is literally his girlfriend, suddenly becoming a gross misogynist?
Yeah, Tony was really gross and misogynistic in this movie, wasn't he? The Prima Nocta joke, the hide the cucumber joke, it was awful.
And there were many more. He made a lot of Scarlet Witch jokes, too.
I'm dissing on this guy right now, because I hate it. Because I like Iron Man. I think he's overexposed, but I really like Iron Man. And I don't like the way he was treated in this movie.
What happened to him? His girlfriend literally saved his life in the last movie.
I was say, yeah, he had grown so much at the end of Iron Man 3.
Why did he regress to Iron Man 1?
Yeah, he was not the better man we saw at the end of Iron Man 3. That is, and when I'm saying that, that is not to say that I don't think that he should be afraid and paranoid. I think those are legitimate parts of his character that he still needs to work with. But him being a sexist asshole, not cool. Kind of shitty. We can get away
Like,
with some shitty.
Yeah, like, Pepper even got on his case for doing that.
That was lame. Or some... going back to something good, because I need to pick me up.
Cap's costume?
We mentioned Cap's costume and how it's one of the best things
The
ever.
Vision or Veronica?
Let's talk about Veronica. Let's talk about a good thing about Iron Man.
My little sister was the best thing about Iron Man. I mean, yeah, actually the best thing about Iron Man in this movie was my little sister. Actually, no, my little sister's name is Veronica.
Veronica is the codename they give the Hulkbuster armor, and the Hulkbuster fight.
And speaking as someone who has grown up with a Veronica, that's a pretty accurate codename.
The Hulkbuster fight is awesome. Yes. We love you, Veronica.
I love my little sister.
The Hulkbuster fight is great. There's a little bit of anime super robot in there.
And that's okay.
Which is, yeah, you get Iron Man making some actually really funny quips. You get Robert Downey Jr. mugging.
You get Tony doing everything in his power to not harm citizens.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite of Man of Steel. Actually,
he saved more people in that sequence than were left in Metropolis.
Actually, this whole movie is the exact opposite of Man of Steel. That is a plus I will give to the final battle in this movie, was that the Avengers...
saved more people than were left in Metropolis.
Well, the Avengers' #1 goal is saving the people, and their #2 goal is stopping Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in so many superhero movies now, it's not even about saving the people anymore. It's beat up the bad guy. But the Avengers were like, nope, gotta save the people. We'll stop Ultron, but we have to save
everyone
else first. Thank you. But that Hulkbuster fight, so good, so cool. Lots of fun.
I have an issue with the resolution on it.
Of the fight?
Yeah.
Okay, going to the... Okay, yeah.
The demolition of the under construction building.
No one should have survived that much dust in the air.
No one within a 1 mile radius should have survived that fall. The fact that there were people running from the base of that building after it collapsed, that destroyed all suspension of disbelief if you still had any left from the opening sequence.
See, that kind of stuff is fine with me because it is a comic book movie, but it does poke out, but it also, for me, pokes a hole in anyone's theory who were saying, well, it's realistic that Black Widow would have been sterilized. It's like, no, if realism mattered, then everyone in that city would have died after Iron Man threw Hulk at that building. Shut up.
Not everyone. Not everyone within, like, half-mile radius would have ingested way too much concrete dust to survive.
There's only a couple, speaking of that final battle, though, like, with the focus on saving people, the instruments of saving people made me quite happy. I loved seeing the helicarrier again. I'm glad they tied up where that had been. I'm glad we got to see Galaga Guy again.
and Fury kicking the living crap out of an Ultron bot.
A Fury beating up an Ultron bot with a random piece of metal was great.
And Maria Hill just kind of like...
I like Kobe Smulders. I'm glad that she's in these movies, even if it is just to be Captain Exposition, which she kind of is, but...
What was she in that... Oh yeah! At the party she brought her her outfit from How I Met Your Mother.
From How I Met Your Mother! Yeah, she looked exactly like Robin. It was great.
Yeah, it was Maria Hill cosplaying as Robin from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, she did it quite convincingly. You almost think she was the same woman.
Yeah. I literally think that was an outfit from How I Met Your Mother.
I wouldn't be surprised. There are two other good things that I want to talk about before we wrap this up, and I think they were the two best parts of the movie. Hawkeye's ranch.
It was cute.
I liked those scenes. I liked, like you said, Hawkeye being a dad. was really good. And just getting more Hawkeye-ness was just great. If I would have changed one thing about Hawkeye's portrayal, which I think Hawkeye was close to perfect, I would have made him more instrumental in the defeat of Ultron, partly because in the classic Avengers books, there is an Ultron story that is one of Hawkeye's main shining moments, because Ultron beats all the other Avengers, and then he's like, what are you going to do? You're Hawkeye. You going to shoot a bow and arrow at me or something? Even this cover acknowledges it. Like, there he is. Ultron beat all the other Avengers, but then Hawkeye, on his own, without the help of anyone with actual powers, still manages to beat Ultron. And I think it would have been nice to have, like, an homage to that, and just have Hawkeye be the one who really
fires the last arrow. I mean, really, that would have made a whole ton of sense.
That would have been I would have liked that a lot.
Instead, he gets to limp around, save a kid, and watch Pietro die.
Which sucked.
Bet you didn't see that coming.
But, right in the feels.
I know.
But other than that, Hawkeye's scenes were really good. I loved his family. I'm glad they didn't put the family in to make it tragic that either they died or he died. Mm-hmm. It was just nice to have him be happy, and to give the Avengers breathing space. I loved that scene. That was a really great scene. The other character who we haven't talked about much yet, aside from calling him a hot alien, the Vision. The Vision was cool. He brought the satire against Man of Steel to a new level.
Okay, he was wearing Superman's costume, right down to the material it was made out of, how the cape was attached and everything.
I have way more faith in the Vision, though.
He also has laser eyes. And can fly. And he did the Superman flying thing.
I mean, Vision has all those powers in the comic, but I mean, they use the same material.
When he went and he flew up to the window, that was actually a reference to the first Superman movie.
I can see that.
Like, they were proving once and for all that they can write a better Superman movie. And that's great. And not only was he a knock at Superman, he was a knock at your favorite blue man, Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, he was Dr. Manhattan, Man of Steel, but better. He
was the awkward love child plus Thanos.
Can we take a moment to appreciate, speaking of Thanos, that
he actually got off his lazy butt.
He got out of his space lazy
fine,
butt.
I'll do it myself. Let's put on the funky golden gauntlet.
I was gonna say, my friend, a different Sean, not Sean Orange.
What do you think of my Hellboy cosplay?
But
thank you.
A friend of mine, not Sean Orange, but another Sean, a Sean you know, was pointing out to me, can we take a moment to appreciate that in this movie, it took Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, and an Infinity Gem to create a monster that Hank Pym created literally on his own by accident? Because that's Ultron. That's just saying. Oops. How about, should we wrap up some general, last thoughts?
Last thoughts. I wish they would have introduced Oscorp because they have the rights to Spider-Man's films.
I wish the movie would have spent more time focusing on telling a good Avengers story than setting up the next 6 or 7 movies. Ulysses Claw didn't... Ulysses S. I was thinking of Grant. But Ulysses Claw didn't need to... We didn't need to set up for Black Panther. We didn't need...
Might as well have set up for Daredevil.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess it's fine. I'm fine with them laying the seeds for Civil War, because that's next. That makes sense. But I felt like way too much time was spent. And Thor's stupid dream sequence could go away, please. Because
we're gonna have another Thor movie. Hey.
Well, I know you're gonna have another Thor movie. Hey. The scene makes no sense, you guys.
We're gonna do the Infinity Gauntlet.
I know you're doing...
Like 5 years from now.
I know.
Could you have focused on the movie at hand called Captain America Civil War?
I think I'm looking more forward to that Avengers movie than this one.
Oh, you mean where Tony gets to get punched in the face by Cap?
Kind of deserves it. He deserves it after a couple of the things he said in this movie. Joss Whedon's getting a lot of heat for this movie right now. And I'm not sure how much of it he deserves. Now, yeah, did he write a lot of the stuff I found problematic?
Probably.
Probably, yeah.
He really likes Robin.
At the same time, though, there was a lot of studio interference on this movie. We know there was a lot of studio interference on this movie. And frankly, I don't know how much of the things that went wrong are Whedon's, and how much of that are just Marvel Studios.
You gotta set up for the thing. You gotta set up for the thing. You gotta have this thing in there, otherwise I'm gonna cut that other thing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how much of it he's to blame and how much of it is Marvel just getting on him about it. Recently, Whedon has gone so far as to say that this movie broke him. Like, he is... I'm glad he's stepping away because I just don't feel like he's... I feel like these movies are hurting him more than they're really helping him.
Yeah.
And it sucks, because I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm a big Joss Whedon fan. I really like Buffy. I really like Firefly. And yeah, and I liked the first Avengers movie.
And I'm pretty sure he didn't write those misogynistic words. Pretty sure he didn't.
I hope he didn't. If he did, bad form Joss.
He knows how to write different kinds of characters.
Yeah, exactly. If he did bad form Joss, that sucks. But yeah, I feel like he's getting... I feel it's really crappy that Joss Whedon is getting a lot of this blame, and no one is, saying,
going
wow,
towards the other people, like the producer and the
Disney execs, and yeah, he's not alone. Film by committee, that bad stuff can happen, and I feel like that prevented this from being a truly great movie.
I'm actually here.
Yeah, I know.
Where are you?
I'm kind of here. I still think...
You're leaning up?
I'm mostly leaning up. I still think it was...
I can go a little bit this way.
I think you're closer to that way. From the conversations we've had. I'm glad I saw it.
I am going to see it again.
Yeah. I'm glad I saw it. I think it was a very entertaining summer movie, and it was not a bad way to start off the summer.
But I'm looking more forward to Ant-Man than I was to this, so...
Yeah, I'm with you. Can't wait to see Ant-Man. I can't wait to talk to all of you guys about it, because we're going to.
I was the first believer.
You were the first believer, and I'm glad you stuck with it, because it looks like it's going to be a full... I'm hoping Ant-Man will be the Guardians of this year. Like, the really fun movie that no one saw coming.
Can I weirdly ask it to be better?
That's a tall order.
Joss said it was the best script he'd ever seen.
Yeah, that was the Edgar Wright version. We don't know how much they've changed it.
I don't know. It's such high praise.
I'm looking forward to Ant-Man. I think Ant-Man's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to talking about more movies with you guys.
And see you for Mad Max.
Yeah, see you for Mad Max. I hope this clarified some of our thoughts on Age of Ultron. Thanks for stopping by, and as always, keep on spocking in the free world.
That one.